Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Seen Beyond and Through with Monty. Today's episode is going to be a roller coaster, and it's going to be a cautionary tale because we will go back down memory lane. But before we do, let me do a little explaining. Right before you is a friend of mine from like 20 years ago. And I haven't blotted out because he has a very good private life now. This does not really concern him. However, this particular video was a result of our conversation over a mutual friend of his, more like someone I kind of knew. Not really well, but knew of, rather. And that particular person is this person here. Now, he's a public figure. He made himself public. He posted pictures everywhere, was happy to do that. And he had a little notoriety, both good and bad. Do you recognize him? Our conversation included him because I had not heard from him in quite a while. And his friend, I thought maybe wouldn't know what happened to him. And when I inquired about him, he had no clue. It's almost like he just disappeared from the face of the earth. No social media, nothing. No Facebook, Instagram, linked, just nothing. No Twitter, which is very odd. We can just hope that he's okay. But this person is David E. Armstrong, and he's a photographer. He did a book called Rare Flesh. Now, this is not a nude picture right here, as you can clearly see. It's an art picture, just showing his head, shoulders, knees, pretty much, forearms. So YouTube, please do not get crazy on me. This is no nudity here. But this particular book right here, I happened to purchase it back in the day. It came out around 2002. So yes, I did get my copy. And to give you more clues, this was his partner back in the day. Do you recognize him? Here they go together. And at one point in time, they were the gay royal couple of America. You know, this millionaire meets this black guy who, for all intents and purposes, was not famous, was not well known. But I'm going to get into the crux as to how they met. The photographer, as you know, is David Armstrong, and his partner back then was Clive Barker. Clive Barker, as you know, has made a name for himself. He did Candyman, Book of Blood, The Midnight Meat Train, and Hellraisers. He has quite an extensive collection of horror movies and books. And I have seen many of them, enjoyed them. I'm a good horror buff. I love a nice horror movie. But this is a horror story. And why do I say that? I want you to listen here. Clive Barker's ex-boyfriend claims the horror writer infected him with HIV, then booted him out of their sprawling Beverly Hills estate that they shared for 14 years, according to the lawsuit in Superior Court. Emilian David Armstrong says he met Barker, mastermind behind the Hellraiser and Candyman series, in March of 1996. Let me stop there. I got some inside scoop on this. They met outside of a gay club in Los Angeles. I believe the club was in Silver Lake. David was going to pull into a parking space, and Clive took it. And David said, "You took my parking space." And Clive liked what he's seen. David liked what he's seen. And it was on from there. So that's how they met. Now let's move on. And he and his then 8-year-old daughter, Nicole, from a previous relationship, heterosexual relationship, moved into Barker's sprawling Beverly Hills home 4 months later. 4 months. Okay, let's go on. The pair married in a ceremony attended by friends and family in October of 1996. Now, mind you, in 1996, marriage was not legal, so it was just a ceremony. No legalities to it at all. Okay, Armstrong says the marriage was not legally recognized by the state of California. True. That November, Barker told Armstrong that he was HIV positive, and Armstrong tested positive soon after. The exposure, he says, was a result of Barker's undisclosed, risky lifestyle. It was not until after plaintiff was diagnosed with HIV that defendant told him that the defendant had dated his own cousin who had died of AIDS, and that the defendant had engaged in forms of sadomasochism that involved syringes in his previous relationships, the 41-page complaint filed Tuesday states. Armstrong, a photographer by trade, then cared for the pair's 8 dogs, 6 birds, and oversaw bookkeeping and accounting for the household staff, which included 4 gardeners, 3 housekeeper, pool maintenance persons, dog walkers. So they pretty much had a very nice lifestyle. Let's move on from this. Okay, the couple vacationed in Hawaii, traveled to Spain, London, New York City, Ireland, the Netherlands. Armstrong says he also charged up to $12,000 in personal expenses a month to a credit card paid by Barker, of course. Defendant promised plaintiff that he would take care of plaintiff for the rest of his life. In accordance with that promise, in 1997, defendant had his accountant draw up a will stating that if anything were to happen to defendant, plaintiff would inherit defendant's estate. The complaint states. The pair allegedly cooperated on Halloween mazes for Universal Studios, Hellraisers, action figures, video games, Undying and Jericho, the Max Skins, iPad covers, but Armstrong never received any payment for his contributions, he says. But Armstrong, you were living there for like 14 years, rent-free. I would think that is some type of payment. But I digress. Let's go on. Okay, it says that Barker became addicted to prescription painkillers, including Vicodin, Percocet, Demerol, Oxycodone. In 2003, and mixed drugs with alcohol, cocaine, and crystal meth, the complaint states. Armstrong flushed cocaine and meth down the toilet as he found it. He says, but plaintiff Barker threatened to kick him out of the house in response and called plaintiff friends and family members stupid cunts to their faces. Barker also refused to accompany Armstrong, who suffered from skin cancer, to chemotherapy treatments, and said, "This is my world. You're just a visitor here." And the writer started to invite young men over to party with him and called Armstrong a talentless cunt, a useless cunt, a fat cunt. On April 21st, 2009, the law firm Torpillo and Moran served Armstrong with a restraining order filled with lies and false accusations. And he says he was escorted off the Beverly Hills estate by armed security guard. Armstrong credit cards and joint checking accounts were swiftly canceled. The agreed upon financial support dried up and he was not allowed to return home to retrieve his possessions, the complaint states. As a result, he has been forced to incur extensive debt. Armstrong seeks damages for breach of partnership agreements, emotional distress, fraud, and deceit. He filed the suit per se. Okay, so you heard that. Now, this is some heavy stuff right there. And I want to say this. My friend at that particular time was all in very awe of his friend's David Armstrong's life. He was telling me that he had this pool, he had this amazing house, he had these maids there, just in awe of it. Could have been a little jealous back then. You know, we were younger back then though. But anyway, but little did he know what truly was about to come and what was going on behind the scenes. Because I do not know if this is true or not. I heard that even back then, that Clive Barker was creeping out on David. Now, I know that David was taken aback, coming from a poor background by this big Beverly Hills mansion right there, the neighborhood and things like that. But I have some things to add to this as I thought about that when we were talking. Okay, who moves in with someone within 4 months? I sure in the hell wouldn't. Because for a 4-month period, you do not know anyone. You cannot get to know someone in 4 months. For me, it would take like a year at least of dating. You come into my place, me come into your place, we're going to hotels, we're taking excursions together. It would be about a year. And surely I'm not going to bring my 8-year-old daughter to live with a man I do not know. That's child endangerment. It seems to me that, unbeknownst to David, that Clive was never really clean from drugs. This is putting her at risk because this man could have been a child molester. And let me just tell you one thing about pedophile or pedophilia. It doesn't matter what sex the child is. It could be a boy or girl, just as long as it's a child. So that wasn't a smart idea. I do not know if he was desperate or what, but that's to me is a form of child endangerment. It's no different than a female meeting a man and only knowing him for 4 months and leaving that man to her children to babysit. Not a good idea at all. And I'm sure that he was taken aback and just bewilderment and amazement by all the trips that he was going to. Having this great lifestyle, London, Paris, Amsterdam, flying across the world. But look at this man's eyes. Eyes are truly the windows to the soul. They're kind of scary to me. Would you trust someone like this? And this was all over the news. Some of you may be new to this or not have heard about it, but it's not anything that I'm dredging up. It's out there. It's still on the internet. Anyone can dig it up. Famous horror writer Clive Barker sued by ex-boyfriend who says Arthur gave him HIV. Here they go in a more loving time. And David saying, "Oh, I got my white man." Okay, David. Here they go with the book signing. Clive did some poems for the book, did some writings for the book, and things like that. Here they go when they were the gay royal couple of Los Angeles. The millionaire author and his buff black boyfriend. And the horror writer sued by ex-boyfriend, he gave me HIV. Boy, David, once you filed that lawsuit, there was no turning back because you disclosed that. You disclosed incest with his cousin. Drug usage, a lot of things that could have caused, well, I was going to say lose contracts, but I don't really know because he's a horror writer. But do you recall when he said that the 8 dogs in the menagerie of animals? Well, here they go right here. Dogs, birds. This was a lifelike painting that was done of them. 8 dogs, birds. And here's Clive, looking like the devil there. I want to bring up something about this picture here, though. But sometimes people are blinded by this, and they can allow this to override logic, reasoning, and common sense, and what little maturity in which they may have. So I'm sure that this was a big factor in moving in within a 4-month period. Now look at this. Would you trust someone whose imagination is full of things like this? Who drudges up things like this? It seems like to me that there is a dark side to them, which the drug use, the sadomasochism, the stupid cunt, name calling, abusive nature is going to be there. You're not going to be able to change it. I mean, you can hope all you want. Hope is for you. It's not going to change anyone. You have to go in there realistically and very maturely and realize that within a 4-month period, I do not know this man. I'm not going to put my 8-year-old daughter at risk. What the hell were you thinking by doing that? Now, this imploded very badly. I could have told you that by throwing someone's stash down the toilet and you're in their house, that's not going to end well at all. It's almost like cutting off part of a finger when you do something like that. I mean, you're asking for war. Best thing you can do is either get out or provide a helping hand, which obviously they have to be willing to extend to help themselves, which he was not, because apparently it got worse. Things got worse. I don't know if violence was involved in this, but he's very lucky to have escaped with his life intact, and his daughter too. But this went on for like a 14-year period. Not the abuse. They were together for 14 years. It started to unravel in, 2003. And by 2009, it was over. So, David, you had like 6 years. Within a 6-year period, you didn't think to put some money away? You had access to credit cards. You claimed that you worked on things with them. You were helping keeping up the house, walking the dogs. You said that you were entitled to something, but you didn't think to put any money away because you claimed that he put you and your daughter out and you guys were destitute. You ran up a large credit card debt. But here we go right here. Funny thing. Partners list right there. John Gregson, 1975, 1986. David Armstrong, 1996 to 2009. Immediately, Clive did not waste any time. He got another partner in 2009, the same year that he broke up with David. He got a John Raymond Jr. So Clive wasted no time moving on after he booted David out of their house with a John Raymond Jr. And what was the outcome of that? Hellraiser Arthur victorious in cousin sex HIV lawsuit. Let's see. TMZ broke the story. Barker's ex-boyfriend, Emilian David Armstrong, sued the writer in June, claiming Barker gave him HIV in 1996, then kicked him out on the street, leaving him destitute. The lawsuit is crazy, with allegations of cousin sex, AIDS, S&M, drug-fueled parties, but the judge ruled the case was baseless and should not go forward. The case had previously been thrown out, but the judge gave Armstrong a chance to rework his lawsuit with new evidence. Armstrong never followed through, so the dismissal is now permanent. So Clive won. But, did he? Because if these allegations are true, knowing that you're HIV positive, going in there having unprotected sex, not warning him until after the fact, you have a lot on your hands. You really do. But this is a cautionary tale that we cannot be so seduced by money or someone's fame. And when we are going into a relationship, maybe it's best to wait. There's no maybe to that. It is best to wait until you thoroughly know someone. Thoroughly is a word, you won't thoroughly know someone, but you can get to know them much better, a lot deeper than a 4-month period. You're just asking for trouble. It's almost like you're hoping. You have this pie in the sky fantasy of what this person is, or what this relationship should be, and you're throwing all caution to the wind. So that should be a lesson for all of us. But to my friend who was a little envious of the lifestyle that David had back then, today he's in a very happy, loving, stable relationship. None of the traumas that David has gone through with Clive. So just to show you that on the outside looking in, we don't really know what people are going through or what is really going on. And if we hang in there long enough, some of us, like my friend, something good happened, something better happened than what you thought another person had going for them. So we just hope that wherever David is, that he's well. We hope that his daughter's well. We hope that there was some closure and recovery from this horrific ordeal. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is another edition of Sin Beyond and Through with Monty, and I will see you beyond and through.